We're going to go over the ad buttons on the Predator and all the ways we can configure these in order to help us scale into our position. Diving right into it, let's go over how the ad buttons work on the Predator. So when you enter a trade, either long or short, you're going to see the ad button light up. And these will have different functions depending on how we configure them inside the properties. And we'll go through those options throughout the video. But the base function is just when you enter a trade, you can just click the add button and it's going to increase your position. One thing to keep in mind with these ad buttons is they only work in real time. So that means either on a sim live account or actually running it on playback like we're doing with this video. With these ad buttons, you have 4 separate additional entries. This doesn't mean you can only add 4 more contracts. This means you have 4 separate entries. You can set the quantity of each separate entry to whatever you want. Again, we'll go through that in just a minute. And once you enter a trade, you can also push the exact same button to exit that same amount. So whatever you have that specific add button set to, you can add to your position and take away that position. So now that we understand the base functions of how the add buttons work, let's go into the properties and see how we can configure these even more. All right, so we're in the Predator properties. Let's scroll down to number 6, add buttons option. And we're just going to select this to expand our options. Now, you're going to see a few new features. Guys, I get this every time. If you do not see certain updates, you're missing something in your Predator, that likely means you have an older version. If you're a lifetime member, go to TradeSaber.com, update to the latest version. It is included in your lifetime purchase. You don't have to pay anything extra. It's there waiting for you. If you're on the trial, just go to the Discord, follow the installation instructions, and you will have access to these features for a full week. So again, if you're missing something, please update to the latest version. But with that, let's go over the ad buttons. Here, you're going to see options for each specific ad button. You have the add button 1, 2, 3, and 4. And we can configure these buttons to exactly how we want them. So if you want a manual entry, so that means you're in charge of when you add onto a position, just like we showed in the previous clip, you push a button and it adds on to your position. If you want to add on to your position automatically based on any other auto entry, you have the option to do that here as well. We are going to come back to these in just a minute. I first just want to talk about the attach to order options. And what the attach to order option does, is just going to attach your profit and your stop order to the order 1, that is the one set under the O4 order management. Your order 1 is your target 1. So whatever we have defined here, that is going to be the same stop and profit on your add button. So 150 tick profit, 100 tick stop. When we add onto our position, it's going to set them exactly where these are as well. So just as a quick example, I'm just going to enable this quickly. And I'm going to enter long. So we have our profit and our stop. If we add to our position, it's just going to set our profit and stop for that add button at the exact same level. If we were to move these around, add button 2 has the same setting. It's going to set it again wherever we have that first initial order. It's just going to trace that same amount. Now, if we were to set our add button to order number 2, it will set your stop and profit to whatever we defined under target number 2. So in this case, we'll set, I don't know, 200 take profit. So when we click add button number 2, it's going to set your profit target at this same level. Now, if we select order number 3, it's going to trace your target number 3. But let's say we don't actually have a target number 3. It's just going to set a profit and stop at 50 tick distance from your entry. It's just doing that as a safety, just so it can close off if you need to. And for the final option, if you, let's say, only want to trace the stop, but want to have a separate profit target, you can simply just unselect this. and set your own profit target. You can do the same for the stop if you want, or you could choose a custom profit and target, set them wherever you want. You can customize this however you want. And you also have the ability to choose the position size for each specific ad order. So I'm going to do 1 for the first, 2 for the second, 3 for the third, and 4 for the fourth, just so it'll help us see it a little bit better on the chart. But you can choose whatever quantity you want. So again, I'm just going to play it really quick here. So I'm going to enter long. So remember, ad 1 was attached to order number 1. So that is the first profit target right here with a position size of 1. Ad 2 should be a position size of 2 attached to order number 2. So you can see that increases that amount. Ad 3, we had it attached to order number 3, but order number 3 does not exist. So it should set it as safety profit and stop of 50 ticks. You can move those around whatever you want. And ad number 4, we just had a custom amount. So yeah, you can move them around however you want. If you set them to the same level, they're going to merge. And if you just want to exit a specific amount for that ad button, you can just click on it, exit out that position. You can add onto your position again just by re-clicking it. As long as you're not in a flat position, you're already in a trade, you can add on as long as you have these buttons available. Now, one last thing when it comes to the attach orders is if you're using this option to attach it to an existing order, I recommend attaching it to the last one that will be filled. This way, if you have any trail stops or break evens, these ad buttons will get managed as well. If that order does not exist, there's not going to be any sort of management for the ad buttons. So again, here we have everything set to order number 2. It's the last one that's going to get filled. You don't have to, but I do recommend setting all of these to 2, just so you have that extra management. But again, that's completely up to you. But with that, let's go through our customizable options. So for our first option, we have the manual ad. This is again, like we've shown in the previous clips, when you push the button, it's going to add on to your position. But now we also have the option enter at break of previous candle. What this does is if you're in a long position, this is going to wait until the current price breaks above the previous price's high, and then it's going to add on to your position. If you're going short, it's going to wait until the current price breaks below the previous bar's low, and then it's going to add on to the short side. This option is going to do it in real time. Now, I'm going to set up button number 2 with the same enter at break of previous candle, but I'm going to select the breakout bar close. This means it's going to wait until the bar closes above or below the previous bar's high or low. So with this unchecked, just means as soon as it touches that high or low, it's going to enter. With this check, it means when the bar itself closes above or below. So I'm just going to show a quick example here. So again, you have to be already in a position. So I'm going to add 1, add 2. Remember, this one is going to enter as soon as it touches that high. So here it touched the high, it added on to our position. Button number 2, it's waiting until the bar closes above. So let me speed this up just a little bit. So once a new bar forms, it's going to enter into that position. So if it were to go above the high, but ends up closing below that high, it's not going to add on. It has to close above the high. So that's how the manual order entries work. Let's go to our auto entries. All right, for your auto entry options, these are going to be the same that we have up in your O2 auto entry section. You can now add on to a position based on reversal and golf, bars in a row, inside bar, MA cross, anything that you want in this section. And yes, even your entry signals you can add on to your position based on any of these. And one thing to keep in mind, guys, if you choose any of these options for your auto add-ons, you do not need to select these for your initial entry. That means, just for an example, a very popular way to enter and add onto a position. Let's say you want to enter initially on a reversal candle. So you set up your reversal however you want, and then you want to add on to your position based on an engulfing bar. That means it's going to add on that engulfing bar, but that means you do not have to set up the actual engulfing candle. The trade engulfing bars is not going to take that initial engulfing candle as your main entry order if you do not have this selected. With the add-on, it's just going to add on to your position based on these parameters, but it's not going to be a main entry. So I'm just going to color these in so we can see them, but I'm going to leave the trade engulfing bars off. And I'm just going to come back down here and we'll go over the rest. The cancel auto add option. This just means after these many bars pass, it's no longer going to look for an add-on. So for example, you only want to add on to a position if your engulfing bar or whatever it is happens within the 10 bars since your initial entry. You can just choose that number, and after 10 bars, it's no longer going to automatically add on to your position. I have it set at this number. This just basically means it's always going to look for an auto add unless 10,000 bars pass, and hopefully we're not in a trade that long. But just know you can configure that if you're looking for an add-on within a set number of bars. Now, the setup number, this is what's going to help us scale into our trade. So in previous versions, as soon as we got that engulfing candle after our initial entry, any add button that was set to engulf auto add, it would trigger all of the buttons at the exact same time on that first engulfing candle after our initial entry. What we've done now is we can split them up based on the setup number that happens. So for example, setup number with a value of 1 just means it's going to take that first engulfing candle after the initial entry. Let's set up number 2 over here, and we'll give this a value of 2. This means it's only going to add on to your position again after the second engulfing candle. Now I'm going to set this one up. I'm going to skip number 3 and go to setup number 4. This means that 4 engulfing candles have to happen before this auto entry happens. And engulf auto add, I'm just going to attach it to order number 1. We'll attach all of these to the same order. And this one I will set to a value of 5. I don't know if we'll get 5 engulfing candles, but we will see how this works. So we have setup number 1, 2, we're skipping 3, then going to 4 and 5. So let's hit apply, enable this on the chart and see how it works. So up here you can see we have our reversal in white. That means it is our only active initial entry. Our engulfing candle is there, but it's transparent. That means it is not looking for that initial engulfing entry. We're only looking for the auto adds. So I'm just going to hit play. All right, so here we had our initial reversal candle. We entered a trade. You can see our add buttons now say auto 1, auto 2, 3, and 4. So as soon as we detect that first engulfing candle, it's going to enter us into that first trade. So here we're getting 1. So once that closed, here these things share the same timestamp. We got into our first auto entry. Now I'm going to keep playing it. Here, there we go. Here we had our second setup. So now our second auto add executed, we got into a new trade. All right, I'm going to keep playing it. And here we had our third engulfing candle, but remember we skipped setup number 3. So that means there's no order attached to the third setup. So we skip this engulfing candle. Now we're looking for number 4 and 5. So there we had number 4, executed add-on number 3, and we have one left. We will see. There we go, number 5, and our final add-on button executes. So all of our add-ons were attached to order number 1. Here you can see 4, 5, 6, and 7. Those are your add buttons, all attached to the same price. If at any point you want to cancel these add buttons position, you can just exit out of them. And if for whatever reason you want to manually add on to your position, but they're already set to an auto add, you can just click on it twice, it goes to manual mode, and you can add on whenever you want. And just because I know I'm going to get this asked quite a bit, it does work with your entry signals as well. It's just going to add on to your position based on whatever is in your entry signal tag. You'll have to use the same tag as the entry signal. I do have more updates coming out later, but for now, we are using the same tag. So just to show an example of how that works, I'm going to enable this. And once we get another short entry tag, we are going to add on to our position. So another tag, it adds on to our position. Another one adds the second, third, and finally our fourth. So now that we know how to add on to our position with auto entries, that brings us to our next section. So back in the properties, some of you may have already noticed this Prevent DCA option. This option was designed specifically for a lot of us who trade using prop firms like Apex that have rules against DCA. The DCA, or your dollar cost average, basically just means you're adding on to a losing trade, and this will bring down your average position price in hopes if there's a reversal, you're going to have a much better average price. The reason why so many prop firms either frown upon or straight up prohibit using DCA is because you're basically always adding on to a losing trade, and you can just multiply those losses and end up blowing an account much faster by doing this. Now, there are a lot of traders who love to trade using a DCA method, but a lot of them also are completely against it. I'm not here to argue which way is better. I'm actually giving options to both sides, so any trader can choose whatever they want. But if you're a trader like myself who uses one of these prop firms, I personally trade with Apex, and they have this rule against DCA, I do recommend checking this option if you plan to automatically add on to your position. That way you're always a little bit more protected. And one thing to keep in mind, guys, this is only for the auto add options. You can still manually override this and manually enter it into a trade that's in a losing position. But for the auto add-ons only, this is going to help prevent those scenarios. So when we select this option, you're going to see a minimum tick threshold. This is just how many ticks into profit your trade must happen in order to add on to a position. So for example, if you're in a long trade and you're automatically adding on to your position, that add-on position must happen 10 ticks above your average fill price. If you're in a short trade, it must happen 10 ticks below the average fill price. The higher the threshold, 50 ticks, that means 50 ticks above or 50 ticks below, depending on the direction you're in. For most, because we're entering with market orders, I recommend at least 10 ticks just to protect yourself a little bit more. With faster moving markets, you might consider adding just maybe 15, 20 ticks, especially if you're trading like NQ, things like that. The auto add-ons only add on to your position using market orders, so there's no real guarantee on where it's going to fill, but this will help ensure you're always only adding when you're into profit. So just to show an example of how that works, I'm going to run this again. So apply. All right, so we entered into a trade. We are just waiting for a new down signal. Now, just keep in mind this line, 2650, that is our average fill position price. So that means our add-on must happen 15 ticks below this blue line. All right, so here we had a new short entry signal. Our entry price happened at least 15 ticks away from the initial entry average price. So that means we were into profit and it was eligible to add on to our position. So now that we added onto our position, our new average fill price is down at this line. So let's keep hitting play. And here we had another short signal, but it was above our short average fill price. We were not into profit, so it does not add on to our position. It prevents that DCA and thus no rule breaks from Apex. So let's keep hitting play. So here we had our short signal and it triggered below the blue line. So into profit, it's good to go. It entered us into a trade. So now our new average price moves down to this level. So any add-ons must happen below this level. And there it hit our profit target. So let's see if we get something for the longs as well. This is our average fill price. And any add-ons must happen above this price. Here it was below the average fill, no entry. So it looks like the market is going down. I'm not going to force it, but as long as our entry price is below this average price, it's not going to add on to our position and break that DCA rule. So with that, we're moving on to our final auto entry option. With the all entries option selected, that just means it's going to enter if it detects anything from your auto entry section. So any sort of auto entry you have in this section, it's just going to keep track of all of those and it's going to add on to your position if it detects any of those auto entries. That also goes for any auto add option you have selected in your add button section. If it detects any of these conditions as well, it's going to enter that trade when that setup number happens. So as soon as it detects the first trade, it could be any one of those conditions, it's going to enter. When it detects the fifth of those conditions, it will enter, or whatever you have it set at. So this just goes for any options you have enabled. Now we're going to go over the take profit add. This one was highly requested. This is just going to add onto your position when it reaches a certain amount of ticks into profit, or you could even set a negative tick value so it adds onto your position in a grid style DCA type trade. So I'm just going to show a quick example here. Take profit add. Again, you can cancel after a certain number of bars. We are first going to add with a negative 25 tick value. Then I'm going to add again. I'm going to add a second time when it reaches a negative 50 tick value. For our third, I'm going to add on when we reach a positive 25 tick value. And again for a fourth, I'm going to add when we reach a positive 50 tick value. That way we can see the negative and the positive. One thing to keep in mind, if you are using a negative tick value, make sure your Prevent DCA is unselected. Having this selected, it's going to make these ineffective because it's going to prevent a DCA trade, which that is what a negative tick value is, a DCA trade. So make sure unselect Prevent DCA with a negative value if that is what you are trying to do. So I'm just going to hit apply. I'm going to enable this on the chart and I'm just going to enter into a trade here. So all of our tick add profit targets are going to be based on our initial average fill price. So we are going to mark it right here. So again, very important, as we add on to our position, our average fill price is going to change, but our tick targets are going to remain the same. So all right, so here we had a loss of negative 25 ticks. So it automatically added on to our position when we reached that level. Here we doubled that and we were 50 ticks into a loss right here. So it added on to our position one more time. And now we're not going to add on again until after we are into profit. So let me just speed this up. All right, so here we came 25 ticks into profit, and that was our add number 3. And 50 ticks into profit, that is our add number 4. So that is how our tick add profit works. You can set all negative values, build some sort of a grid system, or all positive values keep adding on to profits. But that just about covers everything related to the ad funds. I hope you guys found this video useful. As always, take care, enjoy.